All right, welcome to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I'm Jason Green. If you dig these interviews, go look at my channel. You can see a whole bunch. And also make sure that you subscribe. Today, we're talking to Alex Mitchell from Circus of Power right after this. Just wanna waste some time with you. Time seems too good to be true. Nobody out there can waste time with that. All right, here he is. Alex Mitchell, Circus of Power, right there.
Somehow he's still alive.
Yeah, still alive and well.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Even though you're looking like a
Still
wounded
alive and good enough.
Yeah. So, okay, this is our second try. Last time we tried, we had internet problems, but we're going to, no one knows about that. So we're going to start fresh.
That's obviously the government.
Well, they know everything. Well.
Yeah.
So, where we left off, you were born in Canada, you grew up in Florida, and then you made the move to New York City. And so tell me a little bit about how that happened.
Drunk, worst hangover ever, 20 years old. Woke up in Pompano Beach, tequila hangover, punk rock party from the night before, drove up there, almost crashed the car, got to New York. I knew some people that knew the Bad Brains, and so I went by 171 Studios and met those guys. Which was a thrill for me because at the time I was just getting hip to those guys, wow. And met Dave Parsons from the Rat Cage that had a record store beneath 171 Studios, who actually had pet rats that ran all over the records everywhere. So
wow.
New York was just so funky and great back then. You couldn't even believe it. It was like, like, imagine the Wild West. There was same kind of vibe where it's like anything went.
Yeah, so talk about like the first apartment that you got and what you were paying.
Oh, well, I only had $10 when I got there, so I went to a bar. And I sat down beside Joe Jackson, was the guy that was sitting next to me. Had a couple beers, saw a guy that I hadn't seen in years from North Carolina who turned me on to a apartment on Suffolk Street for $300 for a huge 3-bedroom apartment.
Right.
But we never hardly ever paid the rent either. It just seemed like you could get away with more shit back then. Never paid the phone bill, put a new phone in, new name, all that stuff.
Now, Alex, at this point, were you already singing? Like, were you doing music?
Yeah, I was in some bands, some punk rock bands, some hardcore bands before Circus. What really got me into Circus was hanging out at a record store called Free Being on 2nd Avenue, which was this great record store that the owner, who is this maniac named James, great guy, but completely insane. He would fly over to England every Friday night and get all the latest imports, fly back on Saturday, and they'd be in the store and sat by Saturday night. So if it was Zodiac Mind Warp or The Cult or whatever band it was, all the hot new records were there. And my friend worked there. So, I hung out in the record store all day. And at that point, Guns N' Roses were coming out. I heard some of their demos maybe or something. The Cult did Undone Electric. And I was just like, you know what? I need to be in a rock band. I love punk rock and I love hardcore, but I'm not that good at it. Maybe I need to find something where I'm more at home. And that was a rock and roll band.
And so how do you meet those guys for Circus of Power?
I knew 2 of the guys from Florida. And then 3 of the guys, Joey Maya was the original drummer before we got Ryan. When we got Ryan, Joey Maya is an incredible drummer too. He still plays down there in Florida and a writer. When we got Ryan, I was just we needed a drummer. We were starting to get a buzz going in New York. Mm-hmm. And he was the bouncer at this place called the Lismar Lounge, this great club, one of those legendary clubs where everybody was playing. Raging Slab and Pussy Galore was playing there, and the Cycle Sluts and Blitzbeer and like all the local bands and cool hangout bands, the best bar ever. And I went up to him. I'm drifting here on the camera, sorry. I went up. Somebody told me he played drums, and I saw him at the door, big dude, 6'4", Irish guy. Recently committed suicide and kind of broke everybody's heart. That's a whole nother story. And I went up to him and said, "Hey, I heard you play drums." He goes, "Yeah." And he was hanging out with some guys. I said, "Well, you're the drummer. You're the next drummer of our band." And he kind of laughed. And I was like, "What's so funny?" And he goes, "These are the guys that I'm in their band right now." The two guys that were sitting next to him. And I didn't miss a beat, a little bit cocky probably. And I just said to those guys, I said, "Sorry, guys, your band's probably great. You're probably great people, but he's our next drummer." And that's the way that went down.
Nice. Yeah. And so, okay, so you guys start rehearsing and writing. And like you said, there was this New York scene at this time. LA kind of had the glam metal scene, and then New York had, like you mentioned, Cycle Sluts from Hell, and later White Zombie and Slab, and there was this thing, and it was a very different scene. So tell me a little bit about what goes into the stuff that happens before the first album.
Well, I mean, really, we got signed. We only had about 4 or 5 songs together, and Rick Rubin took a peek at us for a minute, and I think Mercury, some other labels. We made our demo in this guy's basement, in Daniel Ray's mother's basement in a house in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Daniel Ray, who produced the record, produced Raging Slab, produced the Ramones. And that demo, I don't know where it is, I might have it somewhere, was the best that our band ever sounded. We never quite captured that. And that's just one of those funny things of being in a studio. Mm-hmm. We tried, but it wasn't easy. And that night was magic. We did Motor, Call the Wild, Backseat Mama, Dreams Tonight. The 4 songs just came out amazing. And man, we were just like really having fun, no one was, when you play guitar or you pick up a set of drums, and you're 10 years old or 15 or 20 or whatever it is, or when you buy the New York Dolls record I think I was 13 when I bought it, the only kid in school that bought that record.
Right.
And then 10 years later, I'm hanging out with Johnny Thunders. These are the things that dreams are made of. I'm meeting Joey Ramone and all that stuff. And these are the things that dreams are made of if you're a musician, because most musicians, I'm in LA, there's probably 30,000 guitar players out in that San Fernando Valley right now. They're trying to make it, you know what I mean? And only a handful of them are going to do it. You got to have, it's a combination of things, looks and talent and songwriting chops and all that. Not how good you can play. That's right. Usually got nothing to do with it. And, but so for me, I got with the right guys was what I'm saying is with the chemistry of us, it just worked. And it's hard to explain that, man. And then even like when I left the band in 92 or 3 or whatever it was, and people were going, "This is a mistake." And I was like, no, I'll just get another band and do it all over again. And it ain't that easy, There's a reason why people like that band. It wasn't because of just me, because of all those dudes. Hang on, I got to get this thing plugged in before I run out of juice. Because it was all those guys. And I was blessed, and I always have been, to be with great musicians. Rick and Gary are really good guitar players. And we plug this in so we don't lose ourselves here, buddy. Mm-hmm. There we go. So there was that chemistry there that if you're a musician, it's hard to find lightning that strikes twice. I mean, if Ozzy Osbourne and those Sabbath guys, you can't touch those first couple of records, man. They're insane. I listen to them still a lot. And it's because he had a smoking drummer, smoking bass player, smoking guitar player, and he's a lucky motherfucker to get in there and play with those guys. I like some Ozzy solo stuff, yeah, but none of it is anywhere like that first Black Sabbath record. Is just nuts, man. If you're a musician, there's the heavy part, then a jazz break comes in, and then another riff comes in. You can tell that Iommi listened to Jimmy Page a lot, just the stuff he was doing. And Led Zeppelin too. It's like, if you're Robert Plant, yeah, you're an incredible singer, but if you're Mick Jagger, you released a solo record, nobody gave a shit. As soon as you get back in the Stones, people are like, yeah, it's the way life is.
So let's talk about it. I was at the right age living in New York City for Circus of Power, so the record comes out. I see you guys, and there's something that seems more authentic to me as a kid in New York than maybe the guys who are wearing makeup in LA. You guys.
I've known some pretty tough guys that wear makeup.
Some of them.
Well, look, man, I mean, people like to make that comparison, but like, I was a fan of the Four Horsemen also. Those guys are from where? Frank was from New York, actually. Haggis was from England. The guitar players, I think, are from Pittsburgh or something, but they got started in LA. So, Four Horsemen was had the same kind of vibe we had, is what I'm saying.
Well, let's just say that.
And Guns N' Roses was a badass band, dude. That first record is fucking badass.
But let's say that Circus of Power and Poison, visually and musically, were very different things.
Yeah. Yeah, but
you're both on MTV, at that.
I'd still play with them if they asked us to open. I'd jump on it and go, yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes, buddy. Mm-hmm. I'm not musically prejudiced, I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, our band had its own sound and still does. I think the stuff that we're coming out with a new album in another 6 weeks or so, I think it's the best. I know everybody always says this, but I think it's the best stuff that I've ever been a part of with this.
Well, we're going to get to that. Yeah. We got 4 records before we get to that, but we're gonna get to it.
I haven't had lunch yet.
Well, it's better when you're hungry. You know that. Okay. But so listen, so the Ramones is huge in New York City. Dead Boys is wrapping up, and that scene is still there. Circus of Power comes out. As a kid, I see you guys on the Morton Downey Jr. show, which you guys that's filmed in Secaucus, New Jersey. Tell me a little bit about where they also filmed the Howard Stern television show. Tell me a little bit about how that came about.
Well, New Jersey deserves more respect than it gets. Obviously, that's where they made The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. They called us. I like everything else. I can barely remember back in those days. I remember going down there being very hungover and meeting Ace Frehley and being with a bunch of my friends from New York. I barely realized I was on a television show, to tell you the truth. But yeah, very 80s of us, very 80s thing to do.
Yes. Well, okay. So there's that. And then also, what about the movie, The Burbs, Tom Hanks movie? You guys have a song. How does that come about, if you remember?
Well, when you got a record company, you got their vehicle to do all this shit. Nowadays, a lot of bands don't have that luxury, and you go about things a different way. Facebook, Instagram, this and that. But, you get a call. Like, you have people at the record company that work it and are trying to get you in movie soundtracks and this and that, and I like that. I actually, to be in movies, I'm a big, huge movie fan. So to get a song, in fact, Motor was in that series called Billionaire. That's on, is it Showtime? I think
so.
Yeah, that was on a few months ago, and I was watching it at a friend's house by some strange coincidence because I don't even know the show that well. And there's a great shot where they pan over the city, over New York City, and our song came on, and I was like, it gave me chills. And I don't even know how that happened. Somebody that's the musical director likes the band,
It should give you some royalties also.
No, believe me, that's something I'd love to see, but that's not always the way that works either. I mean, look, the way it is, the way Spotify is, the way YouTube is, and all that stuff, I wouldn't have to work if there was a level playing field. But those people don't pay you shit. Fuck those motherfuckers, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. They haven't regulated the internet yet, so I get it. I'm not against. I'm not all for having rules and regulations on everything, but for artists getting ripped off, I got a problem with that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So, okay, but let's stay back in the day here. So the first record's out. You got the song on a movie soundtrack. You're on the Morton Downey Jr. show. People are seeing you in New York. The buzz is getting bigger. The songs are playing on MTV.
Until we managed to blow it.
Well, we didn't get there yet. You jumped with the gun.
You got to be good at something.
That's a spoiler alert. You can't just tell people that you blew it. But so songs Motor, Call of the Wild are playing, on MTV even. Their videos are out there and people are seeing you guys. And then you played some really big shows. Talk a little bit about what that was like at that point.
Well, I mean, the thing about life and about music and about Circus Power and all that is when you're in the moment, you don't realize how fun and great things are. You
Mm-hmm.
only do later on in life. Like there's some periods in my life where at the time there'd be a year or two I thought really sucked. Now I look back and I was like, wow, you were having a good time. It's just the way it is. But yeah, we played with Iggy and Ramones and all kinds of bands. Alice in Chains was kind of a cool gig because they were great at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously when Lane was still alive, and the band Masters of Reality was the opening act.
Wow.
I'm sure most people that listen to this haven't heard of those guys, but you should,
I know
because
with
they're
Ginger
great.
Baker at one point.
Yeah. Well, Ginger Baker was playing on that tour.
Mm-hmm.
Their best record is the first one. For me, the first one's great. Kind of Queens of the Stone Age-y a little bit. Chris Gossett was in Masters, produced Queens of Stone Age too. Produced that blue and white record, I think, which is great. Yeah, all those things. When I look back, look, I was at work a few weeks ago, and a kid walked in with a Bad Brain shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you see millions of people with Ramon shirts on, it means nothing because you don't even know if they know the band. But I go, hey, you in the Bad Brains? He goes, yeah. And I go, I used to jump up on stage and sing "Paid to Come" with HR. He said, what? And I was like, when I walked away, I talked to him. When I walked away, I go, wow, I really did that. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Like, you take things for granted, man. You just take them in stride. But that was one of the greatest things I ever did in my life, was going up and playing with that band. That band was unreal when they were on top of their game, dude. In my book, no one could touch that band.
Yeah.
Especially live. Like, they were insane live. Like, absolutely stunning.
You were talking about Jerry Cantrell, and I know he played with you guys on your album.
Yeah.
And but you got to tell me, is it true that Lane Staley actually sketched you on an Etch A Sketch?
Yeah. I mean, I was in the back of their bus. There was no shortage of party goods in the back of that bus.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was standing around or sitting around and partying. And Lane, they had a full-time bodyguard on Lane just to try and keep him away from doing bad things. Anyways, he took his hand out of his pocket, he opened it up, and he showed it to me, and there was about 50 different colors and shapes and sizes of pills. And I was like, no, dude, I'm fine. I was just drinking. And I was like, I'm good, brother. And then, yeah, he picked up an Etch A Sketch and started fucking around with it. And also, for people watching this that have never heard of an Etch A Sketch, you have to be over 50 probably to know what one of those are. They're pretty cool, though. And he sketched a picture of me as Jesus Christ in about 2 minutes, but like a work of art. The kid was talented, and he handed it to me and kind of stumbled down the hallway. And Jerry looked at me and he's like, yeah, that's what he does. That's who he is. He's talented. All those guys are great. Jerry's talented. The drummer, Sean, was great, man. Great drummer. Those guys, man, there's a lot of talent in that band.
An Etch A Sketch, though, for those who don't know, was a red box with 2 knobs.
Look like a TV screen.
Like a TV screen.
Old school TV screen.
And you really didn't. I couldn't do anything on it. I don't know about you.
You can't do much with it because you can only go in vertical and horizontal lines unless you twist both knobs at the same time. You can go in a jagged line, sort of on a diagonal. But to do what he did was, kind of like one of those surreal moments where, like, he just went. And the great thing about Etch A Sketches is all you have to do is turn them over, shake them a little bit, and the image is gone forever.
Yeah, which is kind of a shame.
Not like you save it on a computer or something.
Right.
It's fucking gone when it's gone.
Yeah. But so on that second record, what's it like? Do you already feel like things aren't going the way you wanted?
No, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, the band was never really as hungry as it was right before it got signed. Mm-hmm. And we were managed to squeeze some good songs out on Vices, and then on Magic and Madness has got Mama Tequila, which is great, and Circles, a couple songs that are really good. But like a band that was playing all kind of music and everything had to do more bulletproof records and make better singles. And yeah, Call the Wild's great. Yeah, Motor's great and all that. But a lot of times, man, you can't figure out what tickles people's fancy, whether it's, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Gun Club. I don't know if you know about those guys. but like nobody knows who those guys are. You know, not that many people know who the Germs are. Germs are a genius band. Darby Crash, a weird, great genius. You know. I watched the Damned documentary, and they were bitching about not being famous, and I was like, oh God, these guys never had to work a day in their life, and I'm a huge fan of theirs. Just be humble and deal with it, man, and enjoy your fans and all that, but because it's not easy, you know. And then you have a band like the Four Non Blondes will come out with a song that one song that'll 10 million people will buy and freak out over it. Music is subjective, a lot of it, and it's not always easy to figure out. I thought the Four Horsemen should have been a fucking huge band, man. I thought they were amazing. Really, the first record especially is really good. Got catchy, good songs on it. Frank was a friend of mine too. And what are you gonna do? You can roll with it, man.
Do you think addiction was a problem too with you guys at that point?
Yes, and abuse. Like, you know, some bands can handle it, and Guns N' Roses handled it pretty damn good, and we didn't. And I was definitely part of that. Partly to blame for all that. But man, you're young and you're stupid, and that's why I admire bands like, or a guy like Neil Young, who's still around, still making records, still cool. You know, never. I admire that, and still hungry. Still wants to make that good single. You know, still loves playing live, and as an example, the Damned too. To go see the Damned after them being together over 40 years is pretty incredible. Hard. It's tough. There's only two guys from the original Damned, but you know, it's hard. People die. People start believing conspiracy theories. People are nuts, man. So, like, you know, being in a rock and roll band, I've always said, is like having 5 wives. You know, 4 wives, whatever the situation is. Tough enough having 1 wife or 1 girlfriend. Never mind 5 of them.
All right, this is your 3rd record right here. Now, I know you're not particularly fond of this record.
No, I like some of it a lot.
Some of it. But
yeah.
I hear that for you, it almost sounds like if you could have made 1 Circus of Power record out of the first 3, you could have made 1 great album. Because it sounds like you like a little bit of each. Yes.
Yes, but that doesn't make me... The Beatles talk about their records that way too. Mm-hmm. You know, I've heard McCartney say stuff about their songs where I'm just like, oh, dude, that song is perfect. Like, you know, a song still makes me tear up and cry, whatever song it is, or just get off. You know, that's just the nature of being an artist or a writer or a painter or an actor. You know, a lot of actors say that they never watch their movies, and I always thought, well, that's got to be a bunch of bullshit. I listen to my music. I enjoy listening to some of Circus of Power a lot. New stuff too. But, you know, everyone's different, man. Some people can't watch themselves. Some people make an amazing movie like Taxi Driver or something, and then, you know, can't watch it. I don't think De Niro watches his own movies.
So what happened? Bobby D, yeah. So what happens, Alex? The 3rd record comes out. Obviously, things aren't going the same as they were. Right. So that record's based out of LA, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened
at that point? I you know, if I could just nail it on the head, I would, but I can't. But 4 years had passed, I guess, at that point, and it wasn't the same. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. We weren't getting anywhere. We were still making some good songs. I love Mama Tequila. I love Circles off that record. There's some good songs on that record. But, you know, I don't think that I was alone in that band and feeling like, maybe we should hang up the hockey skates at that point, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with it. I'm still okay with doing what I did. In fact, I think Gary Sunshine is playing on our new single that's coming out in a couple of weeks, called Magic Gator Boogie, which is probably is one of my favorite Circus songs that no one's ever heard. It's going to come out in a few weeks, and he's playing on it. So that I get the same feeling of him playing on that than I did when I was back then. It's still the same to me. I still get a rush. I'm like, you know, I never really grew up completely. I became more well-read, and I don't do quite as many stupid things as I used to do, but I'm still 16 years old. Just got my license, you know, I just met a girl and trying to get in the band. That's me still.
Well, tell me though what you're doing between the third record and 4. We got a lot of years there.
Oh, like 30 years, maybe.
I don't think it's that many, is it?
No, it's
Don't age us.
it is a lot, dude. It's like we came out in 2018 with that, so 18 and 9, it's 26 years, 27 years.
Says Magic and Madness.
Well, the 90s happened. You can't blame me for that.
Yeah.
People started naming their bands horrible names and making horrible music, and I went back to work, man. Which is probably the best thing that could happen to me in my life, was going back to work and just being a working man and humbling myself. And I always like made music, was in some bands and things like that, but all over those years, we played some reunion shows with the band. I always wanted the band back together over those years, but it never happened. And then 2016, I woke up in the middle of the night, watched that movie, Almost Famous. I'd never seen it before, which I love the movie. It's just so rock and roll, it captures it really good, that movie. The girls, the music, the live shows, all the stupid shit that goes along with it. Because a lot of stupid things happen when you're in a band. But at the end of the movie, after the kid does the interview with the guitar player, Tangerine comes on by Led Zeppelin, and they show the bus going down the highway, and it just nailed me. I love that song for one thing, and it's just perfectly placed. I got up in the middle of the night and I said, I'm putting together Circus of Power, and I don't care if I do it with me and the 4 guys that are walking along the street talking to themselves, or I'm just going to do it. And I called up Joe, Truck, and Sharky, and Billy, the usual suspects, and we threw it together. And man, I'm glad we did.
Okay, so here is 4.
Here's 4.
Which you put out 2017. This is your first record, also on your own from the other guys.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more back to the sound, I think, of the first record. In the direction you probably wanted to go.
Yeah, got some good songs on that one. Also,
a lot of hooks.
Yeah. Half a Dozen Roses, I think, is a great song, and Fast and Easy is one of my favorite COP songs of all time. Love playing that one live. Yeah, you know what? We made the record with Brent Bjork plays drums from Caius on it.
Yeah,
and we went into a studio. This is crazy, but we didn't have any pre-production on that record at all. This is how we did it. We had a few scratchy demos, but not many. I had some voice memos that I sent to Brent, and this is how talented Brent is. And we got together. I booked 10 hours in a studio on a Saturday. We went in and we nailed like 14 songs in about 7 hours, and Brent nailed them. He's really good on that record, man. He's a very talented musician, that guy, that cat, and he's a great man too, a great person. And yeah, and I don't even remember how I got in touch with them, but we did. And yeah, so that, and then we had the EP come out a couple months ago.
Right. So
if you don't have, I'll send it up to you.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing it. And we should also point out, in that time, you've written a few books. I have one right here. Look at that. And yeah. And you have a new one out now. Yeah. And so, first of all, where do people find your books? Let's get that out of the way.
As soon as I get it reprinted, you can find it. You can find it on my Facebook page. I'm Al Mitchell, not Alex Mitchell. Al Mitchell. The book that just came out is really the only good book I've ever written, and it took me that long to become a good writer. Writing is not easy. Mm-hmm. Probably harder than being in a band. It's because it's just you and you and the paper and you and the laptop. So I wrote this book called Carrie, Confessions to a Dead Lover. That's about 2 people that are madly in love, that are fucking both crazy, and somewhat based on somebody I know with some other girls added in. And pretty much based on me, but it's all it's a heavy book. It's make you laugh and make you cry, that's for sure. I know some big tough guys that like told me on the side, hey dude, I couldn't stop crying at the end of it. I was like, good, that's good. I'm glad I struck that nerve. But I'll have more printed up in next week. So if you're not a friend of mine on Facebook, Al Mitchell, then hit me up on Facebook and I'll get you a book.
Yeah, now, Al really is.
I'll get you a book too. Remind me, because the Alzheimer's is setting in.
I hear it. Well, Al is, for those who can't tell, this is a true independent artist. He is the one-stop shop. The book, everything. He writes it, he prints it, and then it comes directly from him. And people wanted you to sign the book. I'm sure you would do that too. Yeah,
you know what? It's not by choice. I'd rather be on Simon & Schuster. But to tell you the truth, there was this great feeling of this great DIY feeling. You can make something. If people don't give a shit about it, then it's not gonna be a great feeling. But when people started buying the book, I started getting a great response from everyone that read it, or everyone that bought it and then read it. And yeah, I made it in this room I'm in right now. I took it to the local printer. I signed it and I sent it to the people myself in the mail. And there was a really great feeling of satisfaction and for doing that. That's the first time I ever realized that feeling of DIY. Now I see how, Black Flag did it, and this band and that band, and, street artists and things like that. You do it yourself, man, from the bottom up, captain of industry kind of thing. It's a really great feeling. Yeah.
Well, and you're in control of your own profits and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, like making money off the book, but it's people love it. So, if some Tarantino-esque director picks it up and wants to make a movie, it would be a great movie. It's got sort of a punk rock soundtrack to it too. Like I mentioned, songs that are playing, when things happen in the book. You'll like it, man. I'm going to send it up to you this week.
I look forward to it.
It's a cool book. One of the only things I've done in my life that I'm actually proud of.
Wow, you're definitely hard on yourself. Now, Alex, I can't let you go before we talk about a little bit. You mentioned it a little bit, but where are the original guys from Circus of Power? What happened with the original guys?
Well, my great friend Ryan committed suicide about 8, 9, 10 months ago. So that's hard to talk about, man.
I didn't realize that was so recent.
Yeah. Great guy. I mean, look, I can't understand why, but no one ever understands why anybody killed themselves. You can point to a million things, but dude, to make that final decision to murder yourself basically is something that you'll never know unless you actually do it. So
do you have a family?
Yeah, a lot of things. Had a wife, and mom was still alive, and great family and great friends. And I don't fucking know, but it happened, and that's the way it is. And I love the guy, and I can't begin to understand why he would do that. But hit me hard. It still does when I talk about it, or when I think about it. So he's gone. Ryan, the drummer, and Zowie, the bass player. No one's heard from him for like 15 years, 20 years, or something like that.
I was wondering about him because he kind of disappeared. Yeah. You see him in the first 2 videos, and then he's gone.
Yeah, great musician. Also, I think he played on a TLC track after we split up. Like he was a good musician, man. He was doing things and making things happen still after he left us, after we split up. And I don't know. I heard a lot of different things, which I'd rather not repeat, but none of them obviously good. He had some problems with this and that, and I already got a motorcycle wreck, and I heard this and that. But I don't think Zowie's around because no one's. People have reached out to some people, relatives of his in Brooklyn, and no one's been able to get any final response. Ricky is still alive. I haven't talked to him in years and years. Probably never will. That's another thing that's just between me and him. And then there's Gary, who I stay in touch with and has become sort of a good friend again. We sort of weathered all the years.
Mhm.
And he makes these kind of he puts out these records now that are good. They're kind of if you like Dylan and Tom Petty and the Replacements and those kind of things, then you'll like what he's doing. And we have this song that's this real swampy song called Magic Gator Machine that's going to come out in a few weeks. And I was like, dude, you want to play on this, And then he's like, yeah, let me give it a swing. So this weekend I'm waiting to hear from him to see if he, whatever he sends me, I'm going to use. So,
Yeah.
because I love him, the way he plays. But, he's so good, such an underrated guitar player. He's a smoking blues player. And also big influence on me musically. I was hip to James Brown and Parliament Funkadelic and all that stuff, and John Coltrane and Miles Davis and, rock and roll. I knew all about that. But Gary got me into a lot of stuff. I was like, listen to this guy, listen to that guy, listen to this John Coltrane record, dude. This, it'll say things to you about how you sing and everything and how you I didn't really get it at the time, but over the years I have. And, he'd telling me things about being in the pocket, and on the one, that James Brown phrase, and learning about where to sing, how to sing. He never really said it to me because I was too much of an asshole to be talked to like that. But now I can. I've grown up a little bit. But what he's saying to me now I just bought a guitar and I'm learning to play guitar, and then it makes a difference to know all the things that he told me, but especially about being in the pocket, about rhythms, things like that. If you listen to Frank Sinatra sing, dude, that guy sang in the pocket. Try and sing one of his songs, one of his like Summer Wind, one of those songs. He stays way back in the pocket, and you'll find yourself rushing the song, and ahead of him. It's jazz, it's funk, it's soul, it's staying. And that's the way Mick Jagger sings. That's the way a lot of great singers sing, is in the pocket. Phil from Thin Lizzy, the ultimate. Try and sing The Boys Are Back in Town. Just try and sing that song to a karaoke track. It is insanely crazy the way he speaks everything and holds it back, and then he rushes a phrase. It's like, that's what it's all about. If you want to be a good singer, is learning all about that stuff.
No, I get it. And we should point out that Gary also was Axl Rose's guitar teacher. For a
while. Yeah, I don't know if Axl still plays guitar or not. I know he's a good piano player. But that's something I want to do, is learn. I can play guitar a little bit already, play bar chords and open chords, and I'll learn some blues licks and get to be a decent player in a year or so. But I also want to start playing piano, which I did when I was young. I come from a really musical family. My mom is an incredible piano player. 87 years old now, still plays piano every day, plays to ear, commercial will be on TV, she'll play it, right away along with it. That's mad. I'd love to learn to play piano. Again, I used to play a little bit when I was young. My uncle was a drummer. My other uncle played pedal steel. All before they're 20 years old, they're all amazing musicians. And my dad, as much as a madman that he was, old school Scottish guy, heavy drinker, heavy smoker, heavy fighter, heavy dancer, first one of the party, last one to leave type guy, troublemaker, yes, but very charismatic and amazing person. My dad, good looking guy and everything. Whenever I'd bring girls, were like, oh, your dad's good looking. Wow. My mom too. So the one thing my dad could do good, and my dad fucked off a lot of things that he could have been really good at. One thing he was really good at was singing. I can't get anywhere near. My dad sang like Tom Jones, if you know what that kind of singing is. In Russia with Love, when he hits that high note, it's just, my father was a great singer. And every morning in the shower, when I was waking up, and I was putting on my Iggy and the Stooges records, when I was 14 or 15, I'd hear my dad wailing "It's Not Unusual" by Tom Jones, or "Let It Be" by the Beatles or something. And so I don't have that voice, but I got that instilled in me, that musical thing instilled in me, which I'm still into, maybe more than ever.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and it shows, you're never too old. Music stays with you until the end. Now,
dude, I went and saw John Lee Hooker when he was in his 80s. Mm-hmm. Paul Newman acted till he was dead. Like you do, we do. This is what we do. Yep. This is what we do. It's almost like you have no fucking choice.
Yeah, no, I get it. Now, I can't let you go before you tell me a Johnny Thunder story. We talked about it a little bit last time, and then we got cut off. So you got to tell people watching about Johnny Thunders.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I met him was drunk at a place called Banditos, which you remember, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Great bar. Yeah, next to the telephone bar. That block, that was fun block to drink on. And I went in there, and some waiter guy was giving him a hard time, and some people he was with, some undesirables that he was with, who didn't know who Johnny Thunders was from, a homeless guy. Mm-hmm. And sometimes Johnny could, he was always dressed well. I have to give him credit, but in the later years, he wasn't as recognizable and famous, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, he owed like $180 at this, which is like now it would be like $500 at a Mexican restaurant. And they were like threatening to call the cops and stuff. I was like, I saw who it was, and I was like, oh god damn. And I said, I'll take care of his fucking bill. And he's like, okay, sit down, just hang out. And so drank a little bit and ended up going back to somebody's house. He was always crashing at somebody's house. If you know much about Johnny, he never had a place. He used to pawn his guitar all the time. He was, those guys, the Dolls and the Heartbreakers, were a beautiful mess. And I think both bands, man, are just incredible. I love the Heartbreakers, love the Dolls. Johnny Thunders is, I just think, in his own way, he'll never know it, but changed was Iggy, the Ramones, and Thunders pretty much changed the face of music and fashion and culture. And they'll never know they did that. Iggy's smart enough to know that he was a part of that, but the Ramones are all dead, and but anyways, I went back to some apartment and we sang. Johnny picked up a guitar and we sang old Shangri-La songs, the Crystals and the Ronettes. I knew all that stuff. I love all that all those old girl groups, and that's what he was into, man. He wasn't into he wasn't into like the new rock bands or anything. He liked Circus of Power. I don't know why, but he loved our band. But he didn't like a lot of the other bands that were out. He was a curmudgeon, that motherfucker, man. I mean, he either loved you or he hated you. And the same way with him. A lot of people tell you bad stories about Johnny, but I never took any shit from him. I never let him live in my apartment, which is one of the smartest things I ever did. And I think he was a tough guy to understand, man. He was old school Brooklyn Italian. Anthony Gonzalez is his name, really. Mm-hmm. And but the talent with that guy was off the charts. To me, genius.
And he's about to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Maybe, yeah. That's a shit show. That whole thing. I mean, first of all, they should just call it the Music Hall of Fame because it's not the Rock and Roll. Not what fucking Jay-Z is going to be in. It's not the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Damn's not in it. Is Motorhead even in it? I don't know.
No.
Then you're going to put Jay-Z in? Get the fuck out of here. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love hip hop too, man. I'm an all big Cypress Hill guy and Public Enemy, and some of it I really love, but not that.
But it's not rock and roll, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's just stick with that, whether I like Jay-Z or not. It's just he's got tons of fans, yes, and has sold tons of records, and maybe he is great. I'm not into it, but maybe he is great. But the thing is, it's not rock and roll, and I would just call it the Music Hall of Fame and bring everybody in. Because John Lee Hooker, I think, is in there.
I'm sure, yeah.
Al Green and a lot of people that deserve. Look, I'm not into clubs. I'm not into the greatest people arguing about whether Tom Brady is the greatest. I don't give a shit. The guy's an incredible quarterback. Leave it at that. I don't need to do the polling online. Mm-hmm. People go, well, who's better, the Beatles or the Stones? I go, what kind of a fucking question is that? They're both great. Like, just go listen to records, quit being such a, people they got to deify everything and make everything into a war or a contest or a god, and that's what people do.
I like that they discuss the Dolls for the Hall of Fame, even though we know it's a joke, but just for the sake of maybe some young people will be turned on to where a lot of the music they listen to came from. You know what I mean? Because
I understand. Yes,
Dolls was doing it before a lot of people.
Yes, that's a good point. But I also don't care about that. I mean, you got to find your own way in life, and it just seems like I'm still digging out records that I should have listened to
Sure.
40, 50 years ago, you know. And if I have to tell you to go listen to a Little Richard record and you're learning how to play guitar or in a rock and roll band, then you're just not fucking getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I have to tell you to go, if you don't know who Fats Domino is, if you don't know who Rockpile is with Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds, if you don't know who Humble Pie is, then you're just not getting it. You're just not fucking
But
getting
sadly,
it.
a lot
If you
of
think
people
rock and roll is just Bon Jovi and this and that and all these faces that you see, you know, plastered over the media, then you're not getting it.
Yeah.
No,
but that's the good thing about you mentioning these things, because there are younger people getting into rock, and they, you know, the best thing is because there's no reason to listen to new music when there's so much old music that you still haven't gotten to. You know, same with movies.
Yeah, look, I'm into listening to new music, and you know, I'm sure it's this huge thrill if you're going up to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and you're Bruce Springsteen. And it's not the award you're going up there for so much. It's the fact that, like, if your mom is still alive, then that will validate you finally. It doesn't, not all the gold records in the world she doesn't care about. That will validate you, you know. So I mean, it has its good things and its good points and all that, but just like I've seen a bunch of artists up there that I just like, what, you know. So I mean,
well, this
I think
year you've got New York Dolls and the Foo Fighters. It doesn't seem to go together.
no, I mean, I don't want to start slagging bands. I'm
not. I'm just saying.
I've probably overdone that already because I'm really, you know,
But very different generations.
If you heard the conversations that went on next to the chop saw at work, then you'd really hear some slagging band shit. And it's fun, you know, because they mostly are terrible.
Well, there's a lot of people who probably love the Foo Fighters, and that's fine.
They do.
But you got a lot of years between those two bands, and it seems like you would put the Dolls in a long time ago before you get to those more modern things.
You know, I was looking at some Dolls video the other day. I forget what it's called, and I've never seen it before. It's but they're like doing sort of a stage show, sit down audience, and they do about 30 minutes, and it's almost cringing, but at the same time genius. Mm-hmm. Like they're falling apart at times, but then bring it back together, and like Thunders is great, and his hair is like you can't even see his face, and David's really good on it, and it's like I watched it. I couldn't stop watching it because I've seen some footage of the Dolls. It's okay. This one I was just like, oh my god, this is genius. It's so raw, dude. You know, they're not playing more than 3 chords ever. You know, and David's singing really well, and you know, yeah, I think that having them on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for that reason is some kind of validation of you know, Iggy and the Dolls and Ramones and Velvet Underground, you know, these bands that were lauded by musicians but not so much by public. But I don't know, man. I don't know if I even care about any of that either. You know, it's like when it comes to young musicians, I don't give a fuck what you search out. Like if I run into you and you start talking about a band, then that I like, that's cool. If you don't, I don't really care either.
Well, listen, I'm going to recommend
showing my old curmudgeon-y Jack Nicholson side yet, or what?
I'm going to recommend that young people go out and listen to Circus of Power. It worked for me.
There you go. There you go. I'm all about the youth, man. I'm all about the youth, like, you know, but it's like, you know, because we're around the same age, kind of like there was so much going on when I was growing up, like in the 60s, just take the 70s, whether it was the Mahavishnu Orchestra in 1972 making this guitar player that was making insane sounds, you know, about John McLaughlin, Billy Cobham, and that same decade had Marvin Gaye and Al Green, the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, Alice Cooper, T-Rex, David Allan Coe, Willie Nelson. You could just go on and on and on and on and on. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds of incredible acts. The 80s had a lot of good stuff too. And then it just started there was this big, since then, since the mid 90s till now, you know, whether it's Billie Eilish or people go, oh, you should listen to this. It's really great. And I always give it a chance because I want to like things. I want new stuff, man. And it's always just pretty much a disappointment, man. You know, music doesn't seem to have the same kind of desperation and soul as it did before, and it should. When you look at these times that we're living in, I don't know, all the inspiration is there. All this same kind of shit's happening that were happening in the 60s, except it's happening now, whether it's civil rights, government, racism, sexism. There's all the same shit that's going on, and it's blown up again, over the last 4 years. So I don't know what it takes for people to pick up a guitar nowadays and write a fantastic song, but it doesn't seem to be happening at the rate that it used to. And not because I'm older and I'm not turning into my dad or anything like that. I'm just telling you what I think. And so that's why I will remain desperate and to my heart when it comes to any kind of music or book that I put out. It better fucking measure up. If it doesn't, then I'm the guy that should be talked about on your next podcast.
All right, Alex. Well, we're going to recap now. The core years of Circus of Power, you don't really remember.
The Etch A Sketch.
The Etch A Sketch, you remember. I was going to get you to tell a Dee Dee Ramone story, but I'm not sure you had one. No, thank God. Look, the less I hung around people like that, I love Dee Dee. He's a huge deal. The least I hung around a lot of the people that I used to hang around, including Johnny, the better for me, because I need to be around people that are a good influence, not a bad influence. Sure, I can get that. Okay, so he doesn't remember the Morton Downey Jr. show. So what you do is you go to YouTube and you watch it. You'll like it. It was fun. Cycle Sluts from Hell are there. You're gonna like it. Yeah. You watch it too, Alex. Go relive it.
I love. No. I kind of remember it. Was just being really hungover but I loved all the people that I was with, man. Raphael and the Cycle Sluts crew and my band, and meeting as Joe Ramone and Ace Frehley and all that. To think that I was on the same, like whenever we play the Whiskey A Go Go, and I'm going, dude, think about who's been on the stage before. Yeah, and X and every Van Halen and everybody. Then it's an honor, and I don't take that lightly ever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was funny when I was a young kid listening to Circus of Power, I was thinking, the Doors wasn't something I knew yet. When I was hearing lyrics like, the highway child knows no space or time, I was thinking that this was a very poetic thing. It wasn't just, dumb punk rock.
Yeah, well, I think I'm a mixture of all that. I think I'm a mixture of a dumb punk rock guy and a guy that's read John Steinbeck and Hemingway and Bukowski and some of the snobbier stuff like what's his name? Not Kafka, the other guy that wrote I forget. But I'm a mixture of all that. I'm a mixture of working class dude and someone that aspires to learn about the cosmic, crazy fucking world that I live in. Absolutely. Not as poetic maybe as Jim Morrison was, but yeah, I slip it in once in a while.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, so now listen. So you got to go check out those records. Circus of Power has a new song coming out in a few weeks with Gary Sunshine, original guitar player. Where can people find that, Alex?
We're going to release it on just regular on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and those things and our website. So that'll be in about probably 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something to look forward to. And then a new album, right? Yeah,
a new album, all new stuff. It's completely stoked about this record. We're still making it, but for some reason, everything's really, really clicking. I'm getting out of my own way for some reason lately. A lot of stuff is just coming out in volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also your books. Again, in a few weeks, you'll have some books. People go to your Facebook, Al Mitchell, and they can check that out too.
Yeah. Yeah, give me a few weeks and I'll have everything together with the music and the books.
So when you watch this,
it's always about a few weeks. When you're my age, it's like, give me a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Sounds good. Alex, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, great talking to you.
We'll talk again. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.